Create a video using exactly this script. Explore the mysterious and intriguing features of scary Google Maps. Watch, subscribe, hit the bell, and don't miss out on this channel. And here we have Mexico. What could there possibly be in Mexico? Stay tuned for more exciting content. Darkness. These are mummies. These are real mummies. Just look at them in their full, impressive and magnificent height. Incredible. I think it's some kind of museum. Overall, I would personally give it a solid rating of 7 out of 10. So let's take a closer look at what else we have in store. We are now moving on to explore Europe with its vast fields and winding roads. Some kind of backwoods, a place that seems untouched by modern civilization. This is Poland, a country rich in history and culture. It's going to be here. It's a mystery waiting to be unveiled. Look at the pole, a silent witness to the unfolding story. There's a person just simply standing there. There's indeed just a person hanging around there. We'll definitely give this an 8 out of 10 without a doubt. This is America. Riding a bike, it's a little bit more scary and a bit more thrilling. Not too much, but it went fine with the bike. The others don't have bikes, but that's okay, not bad. But overall, 4 out of 10 is scary, but not too much. In the end, we're going to move back to America where we have it right on the street. Got it. So far, nothing interesting. Wow, it's absolutely a regular wig. It's an alien, a real alien with a head like that. An 8 out of 10. Whoever put him there, however he ended up there, this is beautiful Hawaii. This is a jaw, a big human jaw. No, wow. This is for now one of the best. Definitely a 9 out of 10 because I still don't know what's coming next. Maybe I'll change my rating later and we'll see. But in Hawaii, it's just super cool. This is Bolivia. It's better not to walk around the streets here, really. That's exactly why, yeah, they just hung him on a pole. Wow. He's not alone. It will definitely be a 7 out of 10. It will definitely be a 7 out of 10. But I think it's definitely better not to walk down those streets. So there he is. Here's another one. 7 out of 10 for sure. It's an extremely frightening place, so it's better not to mess around there at all. We're moving back to Europe, which is a place we love, and we see Poland indeed. Wow, yeah, well, I mean, this is... Everything feels kind of gloomy already. Legs, these are legs and feet. These are just legs and arms, just like music. There are actually quite a lot of them indeed. I'm currently looking to see what comes next in this particular situation or context. Every place, in every corner, there's something. Well, you can see there, little coffins standing. Whatever they might be standing in, Eltina, are torture devices. You've seen this too, just like I have. Little Grubik mum. What is that? A young girl with a sharp knife in her hand. Carefully, everywhere you look, everywhere you glance, it's darkness, horror, fear. There's someone lying there. There's a skull. Each room is scary, unsettling, and mysterious in its own eerie and unique way. It seems that someone, without a doubt, absolutely has to be hanging in this situation. Google. Magnificent Google Maps indeed. Like, subscribe and watch with me what we can find here and not just hear and explore. Together there will be many very interesting, scary and unusual parts in each room. Someone might not have made it out, someone might not have gotten in. I absolutely, definitely wouldn't go in there at all, because if you can enter into it, you might end up staying. An amazing place. Well, there's something there, something's worth it, all right. I'm all here, but someone is already not there. It's looking in the barrel, did you see that? Now that's real medicine to dive into, work head first, as they say. Where's the exit? I can't wait to get out of here because it's really scary. Frankenstein, good evening. Here it is, that's where we came in and that's where we're going out. Interesting place, We've moved to Asia, specifically Thailand. Thailand, an amazing country and a strange place with strange people. Imagine a cauldron with a long, huge tongue. What is this? How could this be set up? Now let's move to America. Texas, with its beautiful houses, is interesting, but we immediately moved on. From 2004 to around 2007 or 2008, back when Google Maps was founded, this might be one of the very first places that were captured on Google Street View cameras. Because as you can see, the picture quality is like this. Here it is, a ghost at the edge of the house. Cool, and that was just the first. The best thing we've seen here today is probably Hawaii. I'll give Hawaii a 10 out of 10. And Poland, which we saw with that amazing house filled with horror and darkness in every room, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. That's what I didn't get to say because I was really distracted. Let's keep watching, subscribe, give a like, support the channel. In the second part, there will be a lot more scary things. This did a lot of mental damage to me, where I didn't even want to sleep in my own room anymore, or let alone in that house. I had to sleep in the middle of my parents for a while. Then my dad installed security cameras all over the house. We threw out everything that was opened in the fridge, because we had no idea what he put his mouth on in there. The fear of someone being under my bed stayed with me for a long time, years to come. We don't even know how long he was hiding under my bed. It could have been a few days. The smell, the person going through the fridge, the randomly waking up every night for a few days, whether he meant harm or not, having someone hiding under your bed is every child's biggest nightmare. This story is from my great-grandfather, who is currently at the ripe old age of 101. He's told this story at family gatherings for years. He's from the city of Yaroslava in Russia. I guess it was the Soviet Union when he was born there. Being from the USSR, of course, he served under the Soviet Union during World War II, then fleeing to the United States a few years after to escape communism. He told me this story again recently. It had been not long after the Battle of Ilikiluki, which wasn't a major battle of the war, but it still ended up in a large amount of Soviet and German bloodshed, as most battles at the time did. Him and his comrades were celebrating with drinks, songs, laughing and joking, what you could imagine a celebration would look like. At some point in the evening, two fellow soldiers walked into the building. My great-grandfather and his friend Sergei didn't care for these two. It was apparently because they were loudmouths and were just unpleasant guys. Sergei asked my great-grandfather if he wanted to go out and have a smoke. He agreed, and the two put on their heavy coats and walked out into the freezing cold air. Well then, I heard footsteps upstairs, confirming it, and that's when I sighed. Once again, 27 years old, almost 3 in the morning, and she still has to wait up and treat me like a child. I ran upstairs to check Chi, the guest bed empty along with all the bathrooms. I was afraid Mum was having one of her episodes due to her condition, so I ran to the phone to call my dad. After 4 rings, my dad picked up in a groggy voice asking, "What the hell is the matter?" After I told him that I heard Mum wandering around upstairs in my house, there was a short pause, and then he said, "That's not possible. She's sleeping right next to..." My mouth fell open as I turned my head to face the dark upstairs, and just barely, by the light provided by the kitchen, I could see a head peering around from the corner at the top of the stairs, looking down at me. I screamed into the phone as I ran out the front door and down the street to my parents' house, explaining to my father on the way. About halfway there, my dad told me, "All right, I'm going to call the cops," and hung up. I made it to my parents' house, where my mom was already waiting at the door, worried sick. My mom explained that she did come over to clean my kitchen a little bit and to bring over the cake. They didn't wait. 2 police cars pulled up in front of my parents' house, where they escorted me and my dad down the street to my house. 1 officer stayed outside with us, while 2 others went inside to investigate. It felt like 15 minutes before they came back outside and said it was clear. They checked the crawl space, the attic, everything. There was really nothing for me to report other than the door was left unlocked, and I saw the outline of a head upstairs before I ran for it. Still, I didn't feel safe sleeping in there that night, so I went back to my parents. Me and my dad are certain that my mum simply forgot to lock the door when she left, as her memory has been getting worse over the past few months. My dad has been stopping her from coming over alone from now on, which makes me both sad but also relieved. Some nights I still get paranoid that whoever was in my house that night never left and is still hiding in here somewhere.
Steve walked into the bathroom to turn off the water and to make sure no one else was in the apartment.
With every step, Steve's senses were on high alert, scanning for any signs of disturbance.
Mike slowly approached Adam, who seemed terrified because he was shaking so much.
Adam didn't even look at Mike as he approached.
Again, he was asked what was wrong, and he finally stuttered out that there are people in the walls.
Mike didn't hear what he was saying at first, but as he got closer, Adam started to repeat it over and over, louder and louder.
"There are people in the walls!"
Until he was almost screaming it, getting himself worked up.
Steve walked into the bedroom next and was clearing the room when he checked the closet and noticed something as he turned on the light.
There was a very faint line that ran across the wall.
At first he didn't think anything of it, but then he heard what Adam was screaming and a sinking feeling hit his gut.
The realization dawned on him slowly, filling the room with an eerie sense of dread. The more he stared at it, the more he realized that the line was in the shape of a door cut out of the wall. It clearly wasn't meant to be there.
Mike was about to lead Adam out of the apartment when Steve suddenly called to him.
You better take a look at this.
Mike went into the other room to see Steve pointing his gun at the wall in the bedroom, clearly freaked out. They both approached the door, guns raised, while Adam started to cry in the back room. Steve quickly pulled a piece of wall back, and they both froze when 3 sets of eyes stared back at them. 3 people were pressed together in this tiny space in the wall, their faces painted in weird patterns.
Both Steve and Mike ordered them out and handcuffed each one. By that time, backup had arrived and some other police officers got Adam out of there.
It was only made worse when, a couple months later, they found out that the 3 people in the wall were from some crazy cult out in the woods. They were trying to get Adam to join them. They preyed on him because they knew he had a past history of being mentally unstable. They were trying to scare him. He turned on all the water in an attempt to flush them out of his own home. To this day, Mike and Steve say that this was the most disturbing call they've ever been on. Out after hearing someone play the piano, Adam rushes into the room to see who was pressing the keys, but yet again he finds no one there. Disturbed by these strange encounters, Adam, afraid for his life, ultimately decides to leave the house. The mystery of how the blue ball ended up in the middle of the room, along with the source of the loud bang and the piano playing, remains unsolved, as Adam never discovered the truth behind any of these strange events. Exploring haunted school encounters. Look at this. This will make a good thumbnail. What the door like that? I think somebody's in there. There, in May of 2023, a YouTuber named Chris Hill uploaded a pretty terrifying video titled Exploring Abandoned Robert Fulton Elementary School on his channel Herc Hill. His channel is mainly dedicated to urban exploration, and he frequently uploads footage of his disturbing experiences in various abandoned locations. In this particular video, Chris explores an abandoned school known as Robert Fulton Elementary School, located in Cleveland, Ohio. The building is over 92 years old and has been abandoned for more than 13 years. This neighborhood is notorious for crime and is considered one of the roughest areas in Cleveland. In the video, Chris decided to explore this school alone at midnight. As he navigates through the building, he shows his viewers the extent of damage and decay inside. While venturing deeper into the school, Chris hears a strange noise coming from one of the classrooms, but he doesn't find anyone else inside and goes back to his exploration. However, after about 15 minutes into his visit, as he makes his way into the basement, he discovers evidence suggesting that someone else might be in the building with him. At that moment, he suddenly hears a loud noise coming from one of the rooms, and this is when things take a very disturbing turn. That scared me. I thought that was like a body laying there. Tripping. Look at this. This will make a good thumbnail. Why is that door like that? What the hell? I think somebody's in there. Somebody put this in front of the door. Somebody's in there. That shit's still there. Don't explore alone. Hearing a loud banging noise, Chris realizes he is not alone. As he steps into one of the classrooms to investigate, he discovers a creepy message written on the whiteboard that reads, "Don't explore alone." Additionally, there is a sign on the door that reads, "Keep out." Despite these disturbing warnings urging him to leave, Chris decides to enter anyway. As he makes his way inside, he finds more evidence indicating that someone is indeed living there. This is when Chris encounters something truly disturbing. "Keep out. Oh, bet somebody lives in here. Somebody's been living in here. Oh, somebody's in there. I'm out." After hearing the terrifying scream, Chris, afraid for his life, quickly runs out of the building, hoping the man isn't chasing him. If you look closely at the footage, you can see what appears to be parts of his feet when Chris pulled back the curtain in his room. Despite the terrible condition of the abandoned school, someone was living there. To make matters even more disturbing, while Chris was watching back the footage later that night, he discovered something even more alarming. When he first entered the building, his GoPro had captured something he hadn't noticed before. In the footage, a man's shadow can be seen in the distance walking into one of the rooms. It's unclear if this was the same person who screamed at Chris or someone else entirely. But given the loud bangs and strange noises Chris experienced during his visit, it's likely that the man was watching him the whole time. Fortunately, Chris managed to escape the potentially dangerous situation safely. And as of the time this video was uploaded, he has not returned to the abandoned school. Was watching back the footage later that night, he discovered something even more alarming. When he first entered the building, his GoPro had captured something he hadn't noticed before. In the footage, a man's shadow can be seen in the distance walking into one of the rooms. It's unclear if this was the same person who screamed at Chris or someone else entirely, but given the loud bangs and strange noises Chris experienced during his visit, it's likely that the man was watching him the whole time. Fortunately, Chris managed to escape the potentially dangerous situation safely, and as of the time this video was uploaded, he has not returned to the abandoned school. Encountering old lady, little table there, a few bits, loving that wardrobe, just settings. Have we decided to adventure down the right side of the fork in the path? Not far down the path, we found something truly horrific. There was a hangman-like structure, a noose on the ground, an old pair of shoes nearby, and a shovel. I had never felt so uneasy in my life. We took pictures of everything, and we quickly left the woods safely. I've made a personal promise to never go back into those woods. We believe the man who chased us in the pickup truck had something to do with what we found in the woods, and we were only more grateful after this that he didn't catch us. I'm 27 years old. I live alone in a rural town in Virginia, about 2 blocks away from my parents. My parents are both in their 60s, and my mum has become a very worrisome woman in her old age. Sometimes she walks over uninvited and lets herself in, since I had regrettably given her a key, which can get a bit annoying. Like if I would be out really late on weekends at a bar or with women, I would sometimes come home to my mom sitting in the living room waiting, worried sick. I know you may just think, oh my God, that's crazy. Why not just put your foot down and tell her to stop? Well, because you don't know my mom. It's very hard to describe her, but she's the kind of worrisome, innocent little lady that you just can't bring yourself to go against. And I hate to mention she also has mild dementia. Anyway, this was Saturday night. I think it was around 2 in the morning. I was at a club with a group of college friends, really the only place to hang out in this boring town, and I was getting ready to head home. I said goodbye to all my friends and walked the 3 blocks it took to get back to my house. I walked up my front stoop in my drunken haze and dug my hand in my pocket for my keys. When I grabbed the doorknob, I realized it was unlocked. My mom was here again. I quietly opened and shut the front door, locking it behind me. I put my keys on the kitchen counter and found a note written in my mum's handwriting saying, "You forgot this at our house," next to the box of half-eaten cake my parents didn't want. I didn't see my mum anywhere, so I assumed she must have gone upstairs to sleep in the guest bed until I got back, which is something she would commonly do as... I'd like to preface this by saying that I live a pretty quote-unquote straight-edge lifestyle, so I'm certain that what I saw and heard last New Year's Eve wasn't the result of some hallucination or drunken stupor, but was 100% real. I live on the outskirts of your stereotypical small southern town, so a few of my friends live out further into the boondocks that are only accessible by those dark country back roads. One of my friends, Darren, lives with his family in one of the richer neighborhoods in the area that can only be reached by these back roads. Every year his family throws a party at their house on New Year's Eve where all the family's friends are invited, myself included. It's a pretty fun occasion, so I'm always excited when I get the formal invitation from Darren's parents in the mail. Seeing as the weather in the south can be pretty weird when it comes to winter, it didn't get really cold until a few days before New Year's Eve. I could remember the newly frigid air paired with bumpy, unkempt country roads made for an uncomfortable ride to the house. Usually I don't drive with my brights on since I hate how other drivers always blind me with theirs, but the sheer darkness of the windy, narrow road made it a necessity this time. Anyways, the narrow road was surrounded on both sides by a dense tree line. So even with my brights, it was hard to see where exactly all the twists and turns were ahead. Driving on a particularly straight section of the road, my lights illuminated something ahead amongst the trees, something white against the darkness. As I neared, I could see it was the shape of a person standing all alone on the side of the road. They weren't moving or hiding, just standing completely still with their back to the trees. It was a woman, evidently wearing a white dress or gown of some sort, not at all appropriate for the cold. I didn't turn my brights off out of caution, so I couldn't really make out any specific details in the reflective glare of the white dress. As I passed her, I was thanking my lucky stars that she didn't step out in the middle of the road, causing me to stop. But then I started to wonder if maybe I should have stopped to see if she needed some help. Perhaps she was another guest trying to get to Darren's party. But it wasn't until I looked back in my mirror to see, in the red glare of my rear lights, that the woman had turned her body to follow me, still frozen in that one spot. It was definitely creepy, and in that moment I was glad I'm not the greatest example of a good Samaritan. No way was that a fellow party guest. We arrived at the party without any further incident around 8 p.m. parking in the gravel circle amongst the dozen or so other cars outside Darren's house. It was situated in a large clearing in the surrounding forest, just like all the other spaced houses in the neighborhood. The festivities went on until we had watched both the ball drop in New York as well as our own time zone's clock striking 12. After that, everyone slowly started to clear out. I stayed behind a bit to help clean up, as I usually did since I was one of the closer friends of Darren's family. By the time I left, my car was the only one left at the front of the house. When I got in and started it up, I got a low tire pressure light. My car is an older model, so it didn't give me exact details as to which tire was low or how many had the issue. Before I freaked out, I remembered that this sort of thing always happens with my tires when the weather first turns cold after a long warm period. I figured I'd be able to make it home okay, but before I drove off, I remembered that woman I had seen on my way there. Was she still out there somewhere? Had anyone else come across her? There was another way in the opposite direction I could use to get home to avoid that road, but it would add another 20 minutes or so to my commute, which I didn't want to do so late at night and with possible drunk drivers out and about. I figured I'd just suck it up and go back the way I came. I really wish I didn't, but not even a few minutes out on that same dark back road, I could feel something was different with my tires. I could hear it too. It sounded like bare metal scraping against the road. Slowly, my car came to a dead stop. I muttered, this was a different situation entirely. All that was going through my head was, did my tires fall off? Against my better judgment, I had to get out of the car to see what was wrong. Stupidly, I turned the engine off and shut the door. The car's lights turned off automatically, and I was plunged into the deep darkness of the surrounding forest. With my phone flashlight, I scanned each of my tires. My heart sank as each and every one of them had been ripped to shreds, as if they were torn apart by the claws of some. I told my wife to run upstairs, find the kids and hide, and I guarded the back door in case they tried to break in. By the time the police arrived, those people were gone. The police did a thorough search but couldn't find any trace of them. That was the last straw. I didn't care about the cost. I bought and installed security cameras the next day. My wife was hysterical for weeks after that, begging me to let us move somewhere else. I told her that if one more thing happens, we would, but that we would probably be screwing ourselves financially if it came to that. Luckily, the cameras must have done the trick because those people never returned, and we never had another incident occur on the property. The scariest thing, though, is that we still live in the same house and never got an explanation for what happens. My wife Taylor and I recently moved out of our old home. She didn't like being so close to her family and wanted to put some distance between us and them. So that's what we did. We don't have kids, and she stopped working ages ago, so she was relatively amenable to my suggestions about where to move. I'm an electrician, so bouncing around isn't much of a problem for me. We eventually settled on New Mexico. We've both been rural people all our lives, so it wasn't that drastic of a lifestyle change. That was about 3 months ago, give or take. We found a fantastic deal on a place way out in the country. The house is honestly bigger than we really need, especially since it's just the two of us and our black lab Lola. But honestly, we figured we'd make use out of the extra space, maybe even host some of the friends we'd make. We'd been settled in for a few months when I started noticing something odd. The upstairs lights kept tripping circuits, but the rest of the house would still have power. After this happened once or twice, I knew exactly what the problem was. Like I said, I'm literally an electrician, so this kind of stuff is my bread and butter. I figured it would be an easy fix, just a matter of rearranging some of the load on the breaker, which in all likelihood was downstairs. Times like those make me happy that I'm the type of guy who knows how to fix things to be honest. I hadn't spent that much time in the basement since we moved in. I didn't really have a reason to. We'd looked it over briefly when the realtor showed us the place, but I didn't pay much attention. Come to think of it, I don't think I'd been in there one time since then. Anyway, I walked down the stairs and started looking around for the main breaker. The basement was pretty cluttered and definitely not the type of space that could be easily used. It looked more like a storage room than a basement. Eventually, I figured out where the main was and started fussing around. After about 10 minutes, I realized where the load imbalance was and told myself I'd rewire it when I had more time. At that point, I was about to go upstairs when curiosity got the better of me. I figured since I was down in the basement already, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a look around. After all, this is my house. It was honestly a little strange that I didn't know every square inch of it. Like I said, most of it was filled with old furniture and a bunch of junk. There wasn't anything particularly interesting down there, and I eventually concluded that trying to transform it into a usable space would be way too much of a hassle. That's when I noticed something odd in the far corner of the basement. Behind this stack of old wooden chairs was a large metal door. It was strange because this wasn't just any door, it looked industrial grade. It was also a lot taller than most normal doors would be and seemed pretty thick too. I walked over to it and my suspicions were confirmed. It looked like the type of door you'd see securing a walk-in safe or some kind of panic room. My first thought was maybe it was admitting it, but money was really tight during that time and I lived in perpetual fear that I was going to lose my job. A few days went by without anything strange and I started to relax, but then one evening I looked out the window and my heart nearly stopped. All of the statues were lined up in a row at the very edge of the house, just standing there. It was a freakish sight, like something out of a horror movie. I know it sounds ridiculous, but part of me could feel all those eyes looking at me. My breathing went shallow. I couldn't decide whether it was more scary or bizarre. I went outside to get a closer look, trying to make sense of it. Before opening up the back door, I took a few nervous glances around the yard to make sure there was no one out there. It was daylight, but I was paranoid. Eventually, I worked up the courage to open the door and go inspect the statues. I went to lift one of them and immediately realized something. Those statues were heavy, way too heavy for one person to move alone. I couldn't even budge one of them on my own. As I was debating what to do, my wife came outside and the look on her face told me she was just as freaked out as I was. She suggested maybe some of the other neighbors were messing with us, trying to scare the new people on the block. But that explanation literally made no sense. We had met all of the neighbors and they all seemed like fairly normal people. Plus, I had trouble believing that anyone sane would do this to a family with young children. This was harassment, not harassment. It started as some harmless prank, but we ended up calling the police. As you might expect, they couldn't do much. They suggested putting up some security cameras, but we didn't have the money for that. I told the cops we would, but on the inside, I was really reluctant to do something so drastic. They left and I guess I felt a little better even though my wife was still extremely shaken up. My wife and I did everything we could to hide the situation from our kids. Say what you will, but we didn't want to scare them. Nothing happened the next day or the next. I speculated that the cops had scared whoever was there away, which did track on many levels, so we tried to forget about it even though neither of us really felt comfortable. I tried to